We're going with part 2 of the 9/11 podcast on the Meatheads podcast. Here with Ethan. We got Big Sexy. We got Big Sexy in the house.
Yo.
We're gonna. I think we should keep going. Maybe if you want with the Pentagon, because we just got into this.
Yep.
And it's a really interesting part of the whole 9/11 that day, I guess.
You want to start us off there? Because I was talking
we're gonna
last.
get saucy here.
All right. Give me a second here. Anyway.
You can go with whatever you want, really.
Yeah, I don't remember where we left off.
Yeah, just give her.
Okay. With the Pentagon thing, one of the main conspiracy is that like a plane of that size couldn't like maneuver and like.
Right, and get in right in there.
Yeah, right in there and do that.
Yeah.
I watched one video where it explained like the size of the plane and what type it was. Like for what it had to do, it'd have to be like a military jet or something for some of the ridiculous. I can't verify that, but it's just something to think about too. And like where was the plane?
Right.
The plane holds in the wing. I have one saying like this Mike Rothschild guy. Saying, he can disprove it, but I don't think he can fucking do that.
It's interesting, didn't it hit the part of the building where they took basically the counting for like the reserve? It was something ridiculous like that because all the money went missing, and the room that that would have been the papers are in there kind of thing. That room goes. I don't know if you've heard this either, but
yeah, I think
something ridiculous.
Yeah,
you're talking about the Rumsfeld thing where. He said, $3.1 trillion are missing or whatever.
2.3, yeah.
3.2.
So
a couple trillion,
2 point, yeah.
The thing that I have the problem I have with the Pentagon conspiracies is that where it crashed into had actually just been reinforced, right? All the concrete and the windows, everything there had been recently upgraded. So
wasteful government spending.
It seems much more plausible to me that the wings could actually have been shorn off. During the crash, and there's also good evidence to suggest that a plane actually did go through because all these lampposts were bent over. There was the for lack of a better word, the track of the plane. It's like it hit the ground before it hit the Pentagon, and it kind of slid along.
Right.
So all that was there. But yeah, that's my point.
Right. That makes honestly, it's pretty hard to like.
But also the video evidence from the actual plane, it's missing a frame.
Right. Interesting.
And they're like, it's deliberately missing a frame.
So hold on a second.
And the FBI confiscated 84 of 85 videos of the Pentagon.
They took them?
There's I'll let Malcolm go now.
I just want to talk about something. You said video evidence of the plane. Where's this coming from? It's from the Pentagon or is it from the plane?
No.
Okay.
It's like
shit on the ground.
If you look it up, it's the photo of you can see the plane coming, and then it's like the moment it impacted in there, but it's like it's missing they took out a frame that there's missing.
So they just rolled it up, pulled it back, blew the fucking thing up, and we got a couple pictures. I mean, it's possible.
I think like something obviously went in there. There's no denying it. It's not like we put like a bomb inside the Pentagon and it went off, and then everyone buys this shit, right? But like, I'm saying is like, was it not all pre-planned? Like, not that it didn't happen at all, and it's like the holographic missile bullshit.
Right. But then why? What's the frame all about? What's the missing frame all about?
Well, it's like in the JFK Zapruder tapes, when they released that, there was frames taken out of it where it shows like the guy actually like slowed down so the shot could hit, but the other one looks like he just sped up right away, which it didn't. So the thing is, like, you can't trust these guys. Like, if they left it out, there's obviously something they don't want you to see in there, or they would have just. If they could, they would have just put it all in because then no one would ask questions. But obviously there's something that doesn't add up there, and it might be.
But you think that they
something
purposely
doesn't fit the entire narrative,
right?
Yeah.
But then, do you think a real plane did hit it? But it was like staged or planned or whatever.
I'm not sure on that because I've read things that like where is like the evidence that like the plane could even like do that unless it was something else. But then I've also seen other stuff from the side that's like pro and for. Like I said, I don't know. I'm like a 50-50. Either it was like I did or
it's
it
another
didn't,
weird
but it's
one.
hard, like,
It's another weird
and
one.
I personally believe I think it did, but like it's a 50-50.
Right.
Like, fucked.
Yeah, because there's weird things like, fuck made that hole. I don't know. All right, so let's keep going with this shit. It's another one where like really you can't be conclusive about it unless you're pretending to be, you know, like unless you're pretending to know more than you really can.
I was there.
Yeah, exactly. No, you don't. You fucking.
Well, do you want to get on to?
I don't have any more Pentagon stuff.
No, I'm kind of.
no, just
I've
give
got
her
some
with
Air
whatever
Force
you want.
ones.
Yeah, let's.
We can talk about the Air
let's
Force
keep
a little
going.
bit.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that like the usual like guy that would run it was like taken off duty that day or something, and it was like the new guy's first day on.
Oh yeah,
to like scramble the jets, and like that all seems pretty hokey too. If you like,
I didn't read that. I read that the guy who was doing in national air control, like not the military stuff, but commercial plane air control. It was his first day. Like the guy who
taking
ordered
over for the new.
Well, no. Like after when everybody in America was basically grounded, so nobody's allowed to fly for that day. The person who sent out that order, it was his first day on the job.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. But see, so I don't see how that makes it a conspiracy, right? Because if it's
all
just
the
a
little
civilian,
parts of like because obviously if the government wanted some civilian to step in on his first day, they could make that happen. I think like you can't underestimate how much the government can do. I think, and like how much puppeteer work they do.
Right, could be anyone.
Yeah.
But you can also overestimate it too. So
that's true. That's
right.
Why we're having this conversation right now.
Yeah. But okay, so I think there's a pretty legitimate question to be asked in why did the Air Force not respond to the hijackings and prevent the crashes from happening? So, like officially, it's either that the jets sent out to deal with the hijacked planes could not get there in time, or that the Air Force simply wasn't aware of certain hijackings at all. This is questionable because, well, considering that flight control staff knew of Flight 11's difficulties over 20 minutes before the crash, and also that the planes available at the time were definitely able to fly fast enough to reach the hijacked planes. Yeah, it's something just doesn't really add up, right?
Yeah, like it's like all the things are just like it doesn't quite make any sense. Like that's why.
Well, it's also interesting. Like when you're looking for a theory, you're looking for like a pattern, but the real world is so fucking complex that there might not be one in a sense, right? It is just we're all humans fucking around. Like it's just. Like we want things to be perfect, and we have foresight too. So to think like, why weren't the planes, perfectly there, kind of thing.
Yeah, and on back onto the
ratings are just showing up really low.
Balls. All right, let's keep going.
All right, that was the.
So
audio check.
no, that's interesting. Like the whole Air Force thing. It could just be incompetence, but
there's another thing. So to suggest your point about incompetence, to back that up a little bit, is well, actually, I shouldn't say not incompetence, but a lack of preparedness, adequate preparedness. So, 2 pilots were sent out to take down Flight 93, right? This is the one that crashed in Pennsylvania. Yeah. They set out from Andrews Air Force Base and were not able to. But so here's the kicker, though: they weren't able to load ammunition in time. So apparently, this was because the attacks were a total surprise to the personnel, at least at Andrews Air Force Base, and there was no procedure fast enough to arm this plane. So these pilots had to basically they just went out and tried to chase Flight 93 and to prevent it from ever entering Washington airspace. Their plan simply was to ram into the aircraft kamikaze style and bring it down. But in the end, it was just the passengers who did it.
Holy fuck! So they're gonna bump into it like police car style?
Yeah, I guess. And the pilots, at least one of them is publicly on record saying this is what her plan was. To go die if she had to. Right. Well, actually, I wouldn't say that she necessarily had to die because if she crashed the plane, she could eject. But yeah.
She was prepared to do it.
Yeah.
Like a motherfucker.
That's what she was doing.
Dude, imagine being on duty that day and you get that call.
Fuck.
Holy shit, Apple. Like,
I'm sorry, I call in sick.
I'm like, I actually have diarrhea right now.
Sorry, can't do it, boss.
Fuck.
But
I've grown a beard and I can't shave it in time for the air mask.
Holy fuck, right? Jeez.
But yeah, and another one is get into it was done, another conspiracy, it was, done for insurance payout.
Right.
Yeah, it's actually just going to suggest we go into that one as well.
That's a good one.
Now,
for who?
The owner of the World Trade Center, Larry Silverstein.
Isn't it true that
Larry Silverstein,
yeah.
Right,
Silverstein,
right.
yeah.
So isn't it true that him or a number of notables that work there didn't show up that day? Is that true? Because I've heard that, and
I did hear.
Is that coincidental?
They were supposed to have a security meeting about how to respond to terrorist attacks, but they rescheduled it that day because somebody couldn't show up.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
No.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things about allegations of profiteering that I've read. It's so the first one is allegations that insider trading of both American and United Airlines stock before the attacks proves knowledge of these attacks beforehand, and that the commission states this is simple coincidence. I'm inclined to agree with the commission. Indeed, it appears, however, so it does appear that that one particular options trading newsletter recommended the trades themselves 2 days before the fact, and that many readers of this newsletter chose to act upon this recommendation. Furthermore, this sort of put option was consistent with the times. Many airlines, including United Airlines and American, they were seeing their stock prices drop steadily while the economy as a whole was dealing with the aftermath of the dot-com bubble burst, right? So realistically, any smart stockbroker would have recommended this move. I think that's perfectly valid, right? It just so happens that it happened, I think it was the day before. The newsletter went out September 9th. People traded on the 10th. And then 9/11 was on a Tuesday. Yeah, so there you go.
It's another thing where things were happening before it happened.
Yeah.
But
the main other one is that Larry, people say why, is because right before it happened, he took out like a terrorism insurance policy, but you can also counter that by saying that it wasn't just him that bought it. He actually had kind of like, not like shareholders, but he had his, I don't know what he call it, but also I think he was required kind of to purchase a terrorism thing from it. And then people say, well, his payout was a few billion less than it cost to rebuild.
Yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about with the terrorism point.
But the other thing is,
it's important. It's the 1993 bombings of the World Trade Center.
Yeah, and that's he was. I said that. He was required.
Just to clarify,
and
that's what I wanted to say.
And also that meeting that they were gonna have, it tells you that like that was kind of on his mind, right? He's getting insurance for it. He's having meetings on it.
Yeah, but then it's like, is that a big coincidence, or does everything just kind of fit a bit too well?
It kind of makes sense.
But the other thing that you can say, well, why would he do that if the insurance wasn't quite enough? Well, one of the things is that he tried to do, since 2 buildings went down, he tried to double the insurance, but they gave him more than like the original insurance policy, but not quite double. But the other thing is the World Trade Centers were filled with asbestos too, the fire insulation. So another thing, he said, might have actually saved him the trouble of trying to gutting them and then bringing them up to like modern day standards.
That's a hell of a renovation. Like
hit it with the planes. Well, even if he did just did it like by the book, that's still a hell of a renovation.
Was there a bunch of asbestos like in New York in that area? People like getting all fucked up.
Well, if it's sealed right, like it shouldn't matter. But like if there's like a little damage or whatever,
it's when you open it that it becomes a problem.
No, what I mean, like once the 9/11 happened, there's all this
asbestos. Yes, there's
tons of people.
Hundreds of people have died like post just because of the.
Holy shit.
A lot of firefighters.
Yeah, crazy.
Like that picture of what was it, Dust Lady or whatever. She passed away.
Yeah,
there's a chick like looking dazed. She was covered in the dust because there was all kinds of
tons of people are covered in dust.
That's fucked.
Yeah, like
so about the profiteering from the buildings coming down. So So, all right. So, since Silverstein has basically since then he's rebuilt 2 buildings at the office complex as well as the memorial, and they're building number 3 World Trade Center right now. All this has come at a huge cost, right? So I looked that up, and this includes the wreckage, cleanup of the wreckage. It's over $9 billion.
Yeah.
So, and what the payout that he got from the collapse was $4.77 billion. So so in order to get that $9 billion, to raise that kind of cash, there was a lot of government loans, a lot of private donations, and a lot of investment. So here's the problem with that conspiracy. If that was the point to make money, then he fucked it up royally.
He could
so bad.
Unless you think about, because he did try to go for double, right?
He did, and he got double.
No, he didn't get double.
Yes, he did.
The courts denied him double, like one insurance policy. No, that got shot down in the courts.
Well, either way, but then also you could say, what if he had friends in the oil industry and they helped him out?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Totally,
there was how many billions made there. But I also think, I mean, oil's everyone talks about the oil part of it, but.
Hold on, I'm just looking up the double insurance part here.
All right, Ethan, what do you got?
What do I got here?
Yeah, here. Just months before 9/11, the World Trade Center's lease was sold to Larry Silverstein.
Yep.
Silverstein took out an insurance plan that fortuitously covered terrorism. After 9/11, Silverstein took the insurance policy to court, claiming he could be paid double because there was 2 attacks.
But he didn't get double.
He won, and it was awarded $4.55 million.
Which isn't double. It says there in that exact article.
All right. Let's see here.
Either way, it's not really important, right?
It's
because whatever he got
but then
wasn't
you think
enough.
the asbestos removal, and then
right.
Maybe it could have been like
yeah. I mean, and what if he wasn't even in on it, didn't even know?
Yeah, I think that's more of the
why would
possibility.
He be in on it?
I said, I think like you don't need too many people to be in on it.
Right.
Everyone just reacted if it wasn't, but it does look like that. And like the fact that like of the 19 people that tried to orchestrate it, a bunch of them are still alive. Like 9, I think.
Huh.
Like, yeah, I don't know. It's very
interesting. And they were mostly from Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah, the 28 pages, which was unclassified due to
freedom of information shit.
People were lobbying for it.
Right.
Okay, here we go. Clarification here. So the court ultimately did grant Silverstein a payout of $4.55 billion, which amounted to about a third more than the maximum allowable
of one
for a
of
single
the insurance
occurrence
right.
by his insurance policy, but was significantly less than the $7.1 billion he had originally hoped for.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so you were more right than I was.
Right.
I wasn't totally wrong.
No, you weren't. And you still say that would still put you under what it would cost to rebuild them.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But you'd also
It's
get
like
probably
half.
grants and stuff, and they'd put like
And that's what he did.
Some money probably came out of his pocket in the end, but that's where it goes.
A lot of money did. Yeah.
A couple billion here and there.
Here's another weird little tidbit that I read up on. So apparently about 100 million in possibly illegal transactions were made in the hours leading up to and during the attacks inside the computers of the World Trade Center building.
Huh.
So like just before it happened and while it was happening, the computers were on and running, conducting transactions as per normal, but they were allegedly all illegal. And now
illegal, you said, or
allegedly illegal. And now, of course, it's difficult to get those that data. Although there is one company which is trying to do just that. I'm not sure what they've said. I think I read it, but I forgot. But if you want to look it up, do that.
So, I mean, that's another weird one. Like, what if that was just a coincidence, had nothing to do with 9/11, they were just getting stolen from or something, or if there's some corruption going on, but it just so happened on that day. But honestly, because, like, on that scale of something, like a couple $100 million is like, it's nice, but you're not going to do that for a couple $100 million, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to say why, right? Because it seems like we've been going through a bunch of these and just saying why, and it doesn't quite make sense. I think a big part, does come down to the 2.3 trillion, because that's not a small amount of money, and for it to go missing into where we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like Larry Silverstein might not be in on this, and like, but so if the two that I think that might have been the thing, like do that, maybe where'd the money go went somewhere, and also
like distractions.
We haven't even talked yet about free fall speeds of the towers.
Right.
Larry Silverstein saying pull it, right? He talked to people and he's like, yeah, we'll get into that, but like, Larry said, pull the building. He's like,
pull it. Was that like that was recorded or something?
Yeah, that's his after that's his own words about what like pull the buildings, like pull the building, like
I wonder if that means something
right?
in like business tango or
No, because he said like I think I have a quote.
That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, it's.
So this is after 9/11.
Yeah, he was like being interviewed about the whole thing. And I have a whole bunch of like, what do we got here? We can kind of juice this up. 5 frames of video from the Pentagon security camera were leaked. There's signs of forgery. Okay,
all right, we're getting back into it.
Sorry guys, I accidentally stepped on a USB cable connecting my mic, and it caused everything to go crazy.
So we're gonna give a couple seconds of silence, and then we're gonna get Ethan to start again.
Yeah, let me just try to refuculate my own ass here as we trudge on through this shit fest. FEMA's World Trade Center building performance study provided evidence of a systematic effort to conceal and misrepresent the construction of the Twin Towers, while at the same time disclosing in its appendix evidence suggestive of explosives. And that's another one that I think
when they built it, there's already explosives?
No, I don't. I think they're saying the collapse.
Right.
Because we've all seen the videos, I don't know, the jet fuel can't melt steel. And I've seen the guy, I think he's a metal worker, even though it won't melt, it'll still get brittle, but
so to clarify, we are talking about
this is probably the biggest conspiracy that everyone talks about, right?
Yeah. We're talking about the World Trade Center buildings collapsing, right?
Right.
We're kind of segueing into free fall speed.
Yeah.
Larry saying pull it, and
I think this is the meatiest part of the conspiracy.
This is really like everything else can be circumstantial, but this is like when it comes down to because that's the easiest part.
Just
to do,
look
right?
at it. It's visually just like.
If you think about it, if you have that there, what's like a plane and some civilians that cost you, right? Not that fucking much compared to if that was your whole fucking goal.
Right. Okay. Couldn't they just blow it up and say terrorists blew up the building?
But another part of this was the fact that it did happen from a plane that gave the TSA and the NSA a lot. They could beef up their public surveillance a lot more.
Right.
That's part of the thing, right? So, another thing you could tie into all of this is because after 9/11, they can take a lot more of your liberties away and spy and you've been through the airport. It's like a hellhole now, right? Before it wasn't lax, but they were like, fuck,
security rights are all fucked.
Imagine this could ever happen. So that's another big one where it could have actually been worth it for them to pull it in the long run, and the conspiracy on this. So. Yeah. But Malcolm, it sounds like you have a good amount of info to segue into kind of the tower and shit. So.
I was just looking through it all. It's actually it's something that I kind of want to do all at once. So if you want to do all yours first, get your perspective, and then we can do everything I have after.
Why don't we? It sounds like why don't we start with yours and then we'll.
You want to start with mine?
Yeah, we'll do that because I think we're kind of coming down to the big crux of this is kind of the big the explosion and shit.
Yeah, I've got a lot more elsewise after this.
Oh yeah, we can after this is kind of the main thing that we can shoot the shit, of course, about and try to tie up everything. But
fair enough.
All right, so this is the fucking meat right here.
Okay. All right, so there's a couple of articles
make sure I'm
that I cite in
it.
here. There you go. That's the sound I want to hear. couple of articles I want to cite from this. I'll make sure that everything that I cite from this, and I'll try to make sure that everything that Ethan's citing from this is all in the sources underneath the video description. But anyway, so this is from Popular Mechanics. Once each tower began to collapse, the weight of all the floors above the collapse zone bore down with pulverizing force on the highest intact floor. Unable to absorb the massive energy, that floor would fail, transmitting the forces of the floor below, allowing the collapse to progress downwards through the building in a chain reaction. Engineers call the process pancaking, and it does not require an explosion to begin. So, similar in that vein, this website called Mother Jones, I've never heard about that.
Fake news. Mother Jones is an absolute pile of far left SJW race baiting.
All right, we're gonna get rid of that.
Never heard of it before.
No, that evidence.
We can still talk about it.
Get it out of here. Get it out.
Talk about it. So,
well, people know the bias now, so
yeah.
At least that's fucking something.
I'm actually glad that you pointed that out. So it says, theory: the Twin Towers collapsed because demolition charges were planted inside them, not because of fire and structural damage resulting from American Flight 11 and United Flight 175 plowing into them. The buildings had been designed to withstand great stress, and the fires were not hot enough to melt steel. And if the buildings had collapsed, they would have fallen at an angle, not pancake straight down, as only buildings destroyed by controlled demolition do. Now, this is what they say is fact. Planting enough explosives to blow up the Twin Towers would have required considerable preparation, such as hacking away concrete and steel to position the charges. The work would have taken weeks, possibly months, and could scarcely have gone unnoticed. Additionally, no evidence of explosives ever turned up at ground zero or on debris from the towers. The explosion set off by the crashes ignited fires. Sorry, what? Anyways, the explosion
what about
set
the
off,
nanothermite, baby?
Yeah, no, I gotta look into that later. The explosion set off by crashes ignited fires that did not melt the building's steel structure but significantly weakened it, causing its design to fail. Floors crashing down upon one another with enormous impact took the building down. So I've heard the suggestion, this is my personal take, I've heard the suggestion that demolition workers had been seen entering the World Trade Center the days leading up to 9/11. Emphasis on days leading up to 9/11, but never had I heard that they were seen months or weeks in advance. So that's something that got me thinking. There's also this seismic report that was cited by folks such as the venerable great being Alex Jones.
Yeah.
That was
sarcasm. God bless him, true patriot.
That's good news.
Real news.
Yeah.
A seismic report cited by folks such as Alex Jones appears to show brief spikes in the readings which might suggest bomb explosions, but the authors of the report which showed this graph also point to other graphs in the same report. They say the one used by conspiracy theorists is a 30-minute sample, which causes the 8 and 10 seconds rumbles to appear as spikes. Another 40-second graph in the same report shows long, protracted seismic waves consistent with the towers falling. So, I've found it strange how World Trade Center 7 collapsed so long after the Twin Towers, but after reading the Popular Mechanics article challenging the conspiratorial claims, I'm of the personal opinion that it is worth quoting in its entirety the explanation it offers for why that particular building eventually collapsed. This is partly because a lot of the things that it says is pretty complex.
And
so,
yeah, and we're talking about Building 7?
Just about Building 7 right now. We're kind of jumping between all three buildings. All right, so this is what they have to say. Many conspiracy theorists point to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA's, preliminary report, which said there was relatively light damage to World Trade Center 7 prior to its collapse.
And also, what about the, I think it was BBC that reported that it had fallen down before it actually had, and that was picked up by Fox, MSNBC,
Maybe that's because
CNN.
the time zones are different.
No, but it was like in actual time.
Right.
Like,
that's very weird.
It was, they're very weird. Like, they knew they got, like, instructions to say this happened as it did. Like, it was reported.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, which is very spooky. I don't know if you could tie it to anything, but like, fuck, it's pretty spooky.
It'd be silly to do that. Like, what are you thinking? You know, just let them report it naturally.
With the benefit of more time and resources, National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, researchers now support the working hypothesis that Building 7 was far more compromised by falling debris than the FEMA report indicated. The most important thing we found, and this is quoting somebody else in the article, the most important thing we found was that there was, in fact, physical damage to the south face of Building 7. NIST Sunder tells PM Popular Mechanics. On about a third of the face to the center and to the bottom, approximately 10 stories, about 25% of the depth of the building was scooped out. NIST also discovered previously undocumented damage to Building 7's upper stories and its southwest corner. NIST investigators believe a combination of intense fire and severe structural damage contributed to the collapse, though assigning the exact proportion requires more research. But NIST's analysis suggests the fall of Building 7 was an example of progressive collapse, a process in which the failure of parts of a structure ultimately creates strains that cause the entire building to come down. Videos of the fall of Building 7 show cracks or kinks in the building's facade just before the two penthouses disappear into the structure, one after the other. The entire building fell in on itself, with the slumping east side of the structure pulling down the west side in a diagonal collapse. According to NIST, there was one primary reason for the building's failure. In an unusual design, the columns near the visible kinks were carrying exceptionally large loads, roughly 2,000 square feet of floor area for each floor. Quote, what our preliminary analysis has shown is that if you take out just one column on one of the lower floors, end quote, Sunder notes, it could cause a vertical progression of collapse so that the entire section comes down. There are two other possible contributing factors still under investigation. I know, it's a long quote. First, trusses on the 5th and 7th floors were designed to transfer loads from one set of columns to another. With columns on the south face apparently damaged, high stresses would likely have been communicated to columns on the building's other faces, thereby exceeding their load-bearing capacities. Second, a 5th floor fire burned up to 7 hours. There was no firefighting in Building 7, Sunder says. Investigators believe the fire was fed by tanks of diesel fuel that many tenants used to run emergency generators. Most tanks throughout the building were fairly small, but a generator on the 5th floor was connected to a large tank in the basement via pressurized line. Says Sunder, our current working hypothesis is that this pressurized line was supplying fuel to the fire for a long period of time. Building 7 might have withstood the physical damage it received or the fire that burned for hours, but those combined factors, along with the building's unusual construction, were enough to set off the chain reaction collapse.
I think that sounds like horse shit. I don't from the like debris that I don't, it 6.5 second at free fall collapse. Like I don't buy that like at all. What about like Larry saying like pull it and stuff like?
So there's another thing about that. I have it somewhere.
I have the quote on my paper, and there's a counter. You can say like pull it isn't actually like a common term in like the demolitions.
It's not.
Yeah, at all. But also, Larry's not a demolitionist, right? So like, but the fact that he said like we decided to just pull it, and then once like a few seconds later there it went. So that quote alone, what the fuck does that seem to mean?
So this is the quote in context. He had this to say about the collapse of
I've watched the whole video.
So I remember, this is him talking about it after. I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such a terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made the decision to pull and then watch the building collapse. Now, to me, this is them saying pull the fire crews out.
Like, get out of the building. Just let it go.
Pull the crews, pull the emergency responders, pull people out.
But he was talking in the context of the building, like pull it.
Of course he was talking about the context of the building, because the building's coming down.
But then it just collapsed like that? Like,
did it collapse immediately after that?
Well, that's the quote. He's being kind of ambiguous, right? You could either listen to it as that, and then we do have a problem, or he could have just worded it very poorly, and then we sat back, had some popcorn, had some fucking nachos, and fucking it came down. But
I think it makes sense either way, in a sense.
But there's also like
this whole argument, though, that you're and my argument, incidentally, is all based around pull it. Both of our sides of the argument are based entirely around pull it. There's not much other.
You could also look at like other buildings that have collapsed from kind of like similar incidents. None of them fell like any of these ones did. Like, and I know you just went on your 1 minute talk about the like it pancaking down,
effect,
right? But
yeah.
like, I don't know, like. I don't know. It seems pretty horse shitty to me.
Doesn't that implicate the fire department though? Isn't that kind of weird? If he was telling the fire
And
department,
a bunch of fire department people did come out and they've reported that they did
Right.
hear like explosions,
Right.
like a bomb, like
Right.
after like. Because one of the other things, like a plane could have hit it, right?
Right,
Like,
so
that's
hold on.
fine, but then they still could have brought it down after that. That's another thing. Like
Right.
the plane could have just been an explanation for
Right.
why that whole thing happened. Just an easy, like, oh, and then there's tear, and then
Yeah,
boom,
yeah.
there's the NSA, and they can look into your shit.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you say that these firefighters reported explosions.
Yeah.
One question I have is, so there's video evidence of the entire scenario where Building 7 falls down, right?
Yes.
And this video evidence has sound.
Yep.
So can we hear explosions in this video evidence?
Can we? I don't think I've heard.
I don't
one
think
with,
so.
I don't. Is there one with sound? I don't think.
I think there are, but my whole
janky,
point of
though.
this is if there was video evidence with sound of explosions, that would be all over the place. People would be citing that as evidence. But they haven't.
It is all over the place, though. That's
They
the
haven't
thing.
cited this particular video as evidence.
I don't think it has sound, Malcolm.
Okay, maybe then that's
I
it.
could be wrong, but I don't. I think like the best one with sound is like right now it's like a civilian like camp, and it just like bases out basically. You can't really tell what's going on. I think I could be wrong. Like, well, that'd be a good thing to like look up and shit.
Right.
But I'm fairly sure.
Right. I've heard the story where you hear people saying, "I hear explosions," or
Yeah.
they're talking about a bunch of explosions.
And
that
you know what
happened.
these explosions could be is just floors smash.
Right. Well, I mean-
smash.
Not
No,
in
it was something
6.5
different.
seconds. It wouldn't be.
No, because it was
That
it was like a
Well,
yeah,
obviously that smash was
Right.
slowed down.
I mean, I see what you're saying. Like the
But-
air pressure coming down could shoot.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that
once you
explains
see
the dust
video-
clouds too, right?
But I
So-
mean, what was the thing with like the thermite or whatever found in the desks where that was like
okay, the problem with thermite,
apparently
the
I think
technology for it is
thermite.
dubious.
or it was something ridiculous. There was like powder found, right?
Yeah,
And-
it's some kind of explosive. But then I think I also read something where it might be like a chemical compound of like steel being like burned at a.
oh, right.
But
What
then I have a
happens-
whole bunch of other stuff that there's like molten like.
Yeah. So here's the thing about thermite: they didn't find direct evidence of thermite. They found
It was found in the
these
dust.
these little not thermite. It was these
Yeah,
little bits.
nanothermite was found in the dust at ground
Evidence
zero.
of nanothermite was found in the dust, and that evidence was little bits of iron balls, like round bits of iron, which come out from a reaction of iron,
Right.
specifically a very hot reaction of iron.
Right.
But the thing about that as well is that you can get the same thing by using a blowtorch and taking it to steel.
Right. Yeah, so that
So-
doesn't really. Yeah, okay.
It's
That doesn't make that
inconclusive
much
at
sense.
best.
But also, steel-framed high-rise buildings have never totally collapsed from fire or structural damage. Building 7 was not hit by a plane at all. Like it's never happened like that before. You could say all like the engineering thing, but the fact that this is the first one is kind of like a red flag for me. You know. Like,
Okay. So I've got something about that. So, as to the problem of melting steel, steel does not need to melt for it to lose its structural
No,
integrity.
as that one viral
So,
video of the
Yes.
metalworker showed.
Popular Mechanics and this viral video, they've done a good little thing explaining why misconceptions regarding the World Trade Center collapse and are bad. And you know, they note that jet fuel burning between 800 and 1500 degrees Fahrenheit can heat steel enough to cause it to expand and sag. Now, I've got a personal anecdote about this. I've seen with my own eyes evidence of this in my experience blacksmithing. Specifically, steel does not need to melt before it begins to take on the consistency of silly putty. And granted, this is silly putty that can burn a hole through your hand in a matter of seconds. But the point is, like, if you get it hot enough and you take a friggin' hammer, you can break steel.
And you put the weight of floors on top
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
You know, how you
would
cut
it fall
steel.
straight down?
No,
though?
that's.
Like, I don't
think
know
the
about
way
that.
it
Just hold on a
falls.
sec.
The way
We'll
it
get to
falls
that in a
is
second.
very interesting.
So
I'd say that's probably one of the craziest things.
The thing about the steel, though, is like a good way to cut steel forging is you heat it up really hot, you smash it thin, and then you take an axe, preferably an old rusty axe, so you don't dun the blade. But you take an axe and you hit it with another hammer so that it cuts right through really quick, and it's fucking easy, right?
Right.
But so the point is, though, so incidentally, when the structural steel within the building starts to expand and sag, which happens when it gets hot, this hot, that directly causes the concrete around it to crack. Right, so you've got rebar, you've got structural steel, all of that's getting super hot, thus causing it to give way at points of significant load-bearing weakness.
Mm-hmm.
But it shouldn't necessarily be said that it was the jet fuel itself that caused the buildings to come down, because that amount of jet fuel can be estimated to have burned for about 10 minutes. I doubt that it would get the steel that hot enough. Instead, it's been suggested that it acted as a catalyst from which every other flammable material in the building caught fire. It continued to burn for long periods of time, about 7 hours, weakening and warping the steel and causing the concrete and cracking the concrete until the entire structure itself collapsed. And now the note about the diesel fires in Building 7, that's a similar thing right there.
Yeah,
it gets
but,
this fire started, keeps it going, and everything else burns around it, heating up the concrete, causing it to crack, causing the steel to warp and bend even more and crack the concrete even more, until eventually you just have this. It reaches a breaking point, so to speak, a literal breaking point. It all just collapses.
And that's a great one. Popular Mechanics
Right.
article, right? But what about the 1,700 plus engineers and architects that don't agree with that? They actually made their own. A real independent 9/11 thing, because they don't agree with that, and that's their profession.
Are you suggesting that the people who are taking the viewpoint that I just was giving voice to, are you suggesting that they aren't also engineers and architects?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if that many pretty prominent professionals that have worked in that disagree with
I also have to question the degree that they're disagreeing. If they find questions, if they find points questionable, fine. Yeah, I think there's lots of things
arguing
that are
that it wouldn't
questionable.
collapse like that in their expertise.
Right.
It's like for every video that it appears to show that I've watched, this is how it would work. There's another one that makes just as much sense, saying that no, that's horseshit.
Well, yeah, no, I see how that could make it collapse in one spot, but and start collapsing. But the way that it collapses is so if you take basic physics, it'll take the path of least resistance, which means it goes in one spot and it'll immediately lean and go that way. It's just going to topple. It's going to be messy.
It looks
as
so
fuck.
eerily like an actual professionally done demolition,
Yeah.
how it just went down.
Yeah, it really does. When you look at it, no matter the explosion, just the way it looks when it
You'll
goes
never
down.
find a video of a building of similar size with similar circumstances going down like that. That was such a
Are you still talking about Building 7 or the
I guess
Twin Towers?
both, right?
Everything there.
So just about Tower 7, I've seen a picture of it actually, the top half of it almost just leaning outwards.
Right.
Which is very conducive to the point that the suggestion that there is a scoop out of the south face. Right. Ethan, what have you got on your side for
I think
stuff?
throughout most of yours, I've already started my doubts about that, and I don't agree it adds up. And maybe other people can go do the research. I think we've almost pretty much wrapped this up. This part, to be honest, either you're for or against it, and
So we're going to pause for part 3.
Okay, we're going to pause this at the end of part 2. We will come back whenever we get ready with part 3. All right.
probably in a week.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to Me Has Podcast. We're beaming out here.
Please do.
Please defend yourself against the
comment,
globalist
subscribe.
Chinese.
Yeah.
If you're reading this, you are the resistance. Live from the heart of Texas, this is Alex Jones. You're listening to InfoWars.
All right, so please do like, comment, and subscribe, etc.
Yeah.
Go check out part 3. If you haven't already seen it, check out part 1 because you're really missing stuff if you don't.
We lay the
start
groundwork for 9/11
Also,
for sure.
if you're a YouTuber, subscribe to Sticks Hexenhammer 666, one of the best YouTubers out there.
this. Is that you?
No, it's not. No, this guy's a fucking this
Shout
guy's
out.
interesting as fuck. I think everyone
Alright,
should listen to
nice.
this guy. All right, I've plugged my main man, so yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to say like, subscribe, and fuck you.
Cunt.